how do we kind of break this fine facade, right? How do you see these societal expectations, particularly on women, contribute to this pressure? And what are the first steps towards dismantling this fine facade?
Sure. I think for women specifically, this fine facade, the pressure of portraying that we are better than we actually are, is applicable to both genders, right? Men also face it in a very different way. Women also face it in a very different way. Women, for example, have this very high expectation from other women. I think that is where
Correct.
this expectation of perfectionism, this expectation of always having it all together, and
So, how can men create such an environment, whether it's in the personal space or whether it's a professional space?
yeah, I think I definitely agree with you in the sense that it is not one versus the other, right? We need to create an equitable environment together. And both roles, both genders then play a critical part in creating that environment of safety for each other. I think there are many things men can do, right? But if I had to think on the top of the hat, I would say to listen more, to judge less, to
Each
stop there is this whole thing that, oh, should women not cook, should women not do this? There is no such
Yes.
specific formula, right? As a woman you might love cooking, right? I'm not that woman, but maybe there are women who actually love cooking, and that is their way of expression or showing their love, which is perfectly fine. So rather than, I think, from moving from one gender stereotype to another gender stereotype, I think we need to open it up to say, can two self-aware humans decide for themselves what is it that they want to bring in a relationship?
In a world where women are constantly asked to juggle, to balance, to be everything to everyone, it's easy to lose sight of the incredible strength and resilience they embody. Today, we pause to honor that strength, to celebrate the journeys, and to acknowledge the pressures women face, all while understanding the crucial role that men play as allies. This Women's Day, join us for a special episode, 3 M's of Women, Men, Mental Health, and Manifestation for Intentional Living, where we will explore how to break free from societal pressures and embrace intentional living. Today, we have a truly special guest joining us, Shwetha Sivaraman. Shwetha is a certified coach and the author of the powerful book, Far From Fine, a guide that encourages a shift from autopilot to intentional living. With over 8 years of personal self-discovery experience, Shwetha brings a wealth of knowledge and empathy to her coaching practice. She empowers leaders, especially women, to embark on their own journey of self-discovery and transformation, creating a non-judgmental space where they can truly thrive. Shweta's work focuses on lasting transformation, helping individuals develop practical strategies to live with greater intention and fulfillment. So, without further ado, let's begin this woman's special episode.
Hello, Shweta. Welcome to the podcast by Agile Coaching Roundtable. It's a great pleasure and honor having you today. And thank you so much for joining us on our special Women's Day episode. And to begin with, Happy Women's Day. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me here. Yeah, and look forward to any Women's Day special.
Absolutely. And so are we. And first of all, apologies. I'm not keeping well, so my voice is very hoarse. So apologies to you and to the audience. You will have to bear with me for this episode with my hoarse voice. We didn't want to miss this opportunity and have a conversation on this special day. So we went ahead and blocked your time for this after so much of a delay and so much of reschedules. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Happy to be here, Ramya. Thank you so much.
Okay. So today we want to talk to you or have a conversation with you on, three M's in women's life. That is men, mental health, and manifestation. Right. So we want to have a conversation or keep the conversation around these three M's. So we would be definitely, want to understand you being an expert and coach in this intentional living kind of a thing, and you yourself are an author of Far From Fine book, right? So we want to have your perspective on these three M's. So to begin with, first we'll start with mental health and well-being, right? So as a women, we all know that we struggle a lot to just seem to be fine, right? We want that, okay, how will society accept us if we say that nothing is working? We don't want to be in a position where we will give excuses. So we struggle a lot, or try to just fit in by saying that I'm fine, right? It's okay to be fine. And whatever the situation may be, no matter how we feel, we just put our brave face forward and say that it's fine. But the reality is, when we say it's fine, there is lot of struggle that we go inside, that we face inside ourselves, right? We know that things might not work our way, and we still see that everything is shattering, but still we will say that, okay, this is fine. I'm fine, right? So how do we kind of break this fine facade, right? How do you see these societal expectations, particularly on women, contribute to this pressure? And what are the first steps towards dismantling this fine facade?
Sure. I think for women specifically, this fine facade, the pressure of portraying that we are better than we actually are, is applicable to both genders, right? Men also face it in a very different way. Women also face it in a very different way. Women, for example, have this very high expectation from other women. I think that is where
Correct.
this expectation of perfectionism, this expectation of always having it all together, and whether we like it or not, I think women receive more unsolicited advice than men. Right, we are constantly at the receiving end of what we should do, what we should not do. Dress better, dress down, you're too aggressive, you need to be assertive. We have 1001 opinions constantly being given about who we should be, how we should be, when we need to do what. So I would say that the first step for women to start being fine is to first disconnect with this constant barrage of shoulds and should nots, must and must nots that come from all around us, and to reconnect with our inner voice. I think we drown our inner voice amidst all of this external noise about how we are expected to be. Most women, I remember when I asked myself at 25 saying, what do I want? I didn't have an answer. And I often ask that to many of my women clients to say, what do you really want? If there were no limitations, if nobody actually held you to a certain path in your life, what would you actually want? And most of us don't know the answer to that because we've tuned out of that inner voice. So I would say that if we had to dismantle that societal burden on us and really work towards that path of being fine and going beyond that, the first step is to start tuning into our inner voice to say, who am I? What do I want? What do I value? What does success mean to me? How can I find my authentic expression? What even is my authentic expression, right? Am I wearing this top because I think my mom will like it, or am I wearing it because I genuinely love the shade? No, it might seem very frivolous, right? But we need to understand that this conditioning happens so deep. We are conditioned people pleasers, and that is where we need to start breaking that habit to say that, can we tune into our inner voice and check in with what we truly desire and start creating a life of that? I'm not saying rebel against everything, stand up for everything and fight with everybody around. That also doesn't work. But can you start paving the way wherein you also get what you want, right? It is a two-way street. It's not just sacrificing, sacrificing, sacrificing.
Okay, so maybe I'll just try to be more specific in terms of, is it also something like to know the expectations, or maybe as a woman the expectations around whatever you guys do is more, or maybe the societal norms that is pushed maybe I'm very, calculating, taking those words out in certain way, but is it that becomes a over, burden when, there are certain expectations in how one should be behaving or conducting or, presenting and all those things, while the opposite gender, right, men's, there are no, certain boundaries, men, I mean, as a men, I'm just talking about big, we are more carefree, right? So is it something that the society has built it across, or maybe it's like something, over a period of time, something has happened, while that is a general progress, what, and as you said, right, maybe we need to pave a way around what are those expectations. Do you think there are certain ways or maybe certain techniques that you would like to talk about or maybe share with our audience as well?
Sure, I would say that. See, it's a two-way street, right? It's not that there is just one expectations and everybody follows that. If that was the case, we would all be alike, right? If there was just one memo and everybody was following that. The reason why we are not alike is that there is another level of interpretation, right? I am obviously born in a certain context in my life and I am governed by whatever cultural norms are being passed on to me. But there is also another layer because I'm a human being. I'm not, any other living being. I have that way of interpreting, understanding it, right, of perceiving it, and then making it my own narrative. So in every story there is the two layers, right? That's why there are men who are also quiet and not aggressive. There are women who are also very aggressive, right? So there is no stereotypical generalization in this, because there is that layer of uniqueness to say, how do I perceive the world around me, how do I perceive the messaging around me, and I can choose to adapt to it, or I can choose to rebel with it, right? I have that choice, and I make that choice at a very young age. And I might choose which areas to rebel, I might choose which areas to adapt, which is why all of us are very diverse. So it doesn't matter, I would say, it doesn't matter where we are today. And I am, for one, I think if we are 18 plus, I don't think we should blame our parents, society, culture, or anything at
Wow.
all, because it is up to us now, right? Of course, we've been handed down a certain memo, but after that, if we are still playing that narrative, it is on us. So if you're an adult and you can make choices, then it is up to you to tune into your inner voice to say, what is it that I truly desire? What am I okay with? What am I not okay with? And start establishing those boundaries. After that, if you play the victim card, then it's on us.
Wow, well said. I mean, I absolutely agree with you on a point where you mentioned about not blaming our parents, right? If we are an adult, and I see blaming parents or blaming others is an easiest excuse a woman makes, right? I mean, I'm not saying that everyone makes that an excuse, but whoever is playing a victim card, or maybe whoever is not able to break that. Or maybe shatter that glass ceilings for themselves, uh, that is because they are still in that blaming mentality. They feel that, okay, you know what, I'm not allowed to do that, or maybe I'm this way because my mom said so, or my dad said so, or my in-laws said so, or whatever may be, right? So I think breaking or understanding that, owning up things for ourselves, taking responsibilities, and not blaming our parents or people or our past for what we are what we are today is the fundamental thing that we must we must understand, right? And that's I think most of people will would relate to this, because and it doesn't come very naturally to people, right? I mean, it comes with a lot of introspection, lot of courage and strength is required for us to even figure that out. Okay, I am on my own, or maybe I can make my own decisions, or maybe I can do what I want to do, right? And that comes with lot of, I mean, some people learn with the experience, and some people learn with maybe the support of their partners, or their I mean, man figure in their life. And some people kind of need coaching for that, right? I mean, coaches like you who can help them, right? And what I also understand is one of the important themes of your book is about kind of breaking that autopilot mode, right? Or stopping that autopilot mode. Most of us as women, not just women, I would say people in general in today's day and age, we try to be in an autopilot mode, constantly trying to churn one thing after the other, not realizing how is it affecting our mental health. forget about physical health, there comes a point that it starts showing up mentally, right? So how do we break this autopilot mode? Just sit down, calm, pause. And what are those strategies that you would like to share with our audiences, which you have mentioned in your book?
Sure. So I'll answer this in two parts, right? In terms of one, how to break that autopilot mode, and second, to say how to move towards that intentionality. I think for women specifically, if we were to talk to say how can we break that autopilot mode, the first and the foremost thing I would say is to prioritize ourselves. I think women eat last is a mentality that is not just physically applied, but metaphorically applied in so many ways that we take care of everybody's needs, everybody's desires, everybody's wants, and only then come to us. And this leads to a lot of resentment as we grow old. So I would say that the starting point is to start prioritizing ourselves, and not in a selfish way, in the sense that I'm not going to take care of the people around me, but in a way to say that I'm responsible for myself, right? So I need to take care of my happiness, my well-being, my fulfillment. Then the cup will naturally overflow, right? If I have love, compassion, affection for myself, of course I'll have it for everybody around me. Why won't I have it? That's the way it works. So I would say step one towards really being fine, towards breaking that autopilot, is to start recognizing where am I not prioritizing myself, my needs, and how can I start doing that in a simple way. The second is trusting ourselves, right? I would say that women are so conditioned to second guess themselves. Doubt and imposter syndrome is so common. I think there was a study, if I'm not wrong, by McKinsey or someone, where they found out that women will not apply to a job if they don't fit in 100% of the job descriptions. Yeah, and sorry, Vivek, men do. Okay, but we are so we are so underconfident, and we are constantly second guessing ourselves. And that is where I think we get into a state of decision paralysis, where we trust other people to make choices for ourselves rather than trusting our own voice. Actually, if you see, women are naturally intuitive. We are more connected to the nature, the moon cycles, everything. We actually have a very strong intuition, but our masculine system of education and our upbringing has changed it so much that we are not in sync with it. So the second step to truly breaking free from that autopilot is to start cultivating that trust in ourselves, that we know what is best. And again, in the sense that I want to say that it's very easy to go in the rebel sense, that I will never listen to any advice, even if it is well meaning, right? We need to find that middle ground, in the sense that of course I'll hear others out in terms of what they think, but the decision will be mine, because I trust myself to make those choices. And then the third thing, and a very important thing, is to assert ourselves. We don't speak up, right? It's like you will not, we keep saying yes when we want to say no. When that haircut is really bad in that parlor chair, we still smile and say, oh, it's so nice, right? When we don't like it, we need to learn to assert ourselves. I'm not kidding, the number of times that has happened, and not just to me. I thought it was just me, but it has happened to so many women around. The smallest of things, we are not able to enforce our boundaries and say no, right? And we need to learn to assert ourselves, to clearly say this is okay, this is not okay. And that boundary is very different, right? It's not a very firm set of boundaries for everybody. It's not black and white, but there are certain non-negotiables for me. And if I don't communicate that with my family, with people around me, then I just let people take me for a ride. So I would say, if we need to break out of autopilot ways as women specifically, these are the three things we need to do, right? So we need to prioritize ourselves, we need to trust ourselves, and we need to assert ourselves. Now comes the next part, saying that, okay, you've broken free about autopilot living. The question then is that, how do I transition to being intentional in my life? Now, here there is no gender difference. Here, everybody has to do the same 4 steps that I have put in the book, which is one, we need to come to a state of calmness, which is to say that we are all very stressed, anxious, burned out. Our nervous system is highly dysregulated, right? We are constantly consuming stimulants in terms of social media, our emails, our Slack pings, team pings. It is endless in terms of the number of information we are taking in. So the first step towards actually living intentionally is to calm ourselves down, to be able to say, okay, let's see what is happening in our lives, right? Only then can we step back. Only then can we go to the next step, which is clarity, to say, what is working in my life? What is not? What do I need more of? What do I need less of? Where in my life am I constantly facing friction? Where in my life do I feel a smooth, effortless alignment that I can keep building on? So clarity can only come if we have certain mental space and bandwidth. So first C is to find our calm. Once we find our calmness, the second is to say, ask those bigger questions to find that clarity. Who am I? What do I want? What do I value? What makes me truly come alive? What does success mean to me? We've all grown up believing that there is this one common definition or a universal definition of success, that success is wealth, fame, popularity. But do I really want that? Maybe not, but we've never stopped to ask. So, what does success really mean to me? Then, what happens is that once we ask all these big questions, all our insecurities will come up. Yeah. Doubt will come up, worry will come up, fear. What will other people think? What if I fail? All those questions will come up. So, that is where the third C is to cultivate confidence, to say, how do I follow my path? Like, I know what success means to me, but the world will still value success as this standard definition. Can I actually stand my ground and pursue what I truly believe success means to me? That requires a lot of gumption and courage. So that is where we build confidence. And then the fourth C is the most important one, which is consistency. This is not a one time event. It's not that आज मैंने एक ये सोच लिया बस हो गया जिंदगी भर. नहीं. We will keep evolving throughout our life. So we need to consistently keep doing this for ourselves, to say, who am I now? How am I changing? What did I used to enjoy before that I no longer enjoy? Can I change paths? Pride is our biggest downfall, right? So we have so much ego and pride. So we're like, अरे मैंने podcast चालू किया अभी वो 500 episode तक करते रहेंगे. But am I still enjoying it after the 200th episode? Maybe not. Can I have the courage to then drop away and move and make decisions? So it's a lifelong path of transformation. So I would say those are the four C's, that is gender agnostic. If you're in an autopilot way, begin with calmness, find clarity, cultivate confidence, and build consistency to show up for yourself over a period of time.
Wow, this is so wonderfully summarized, Shweta, to be very honest. Those four C's. And before that, I just wanted to maybe again from a thought point of view, specifically to women over here. I mean, since they are more emotionally connected, right? I mean, let's be, I'm trying to be honest over here. Like, as a woman, it's like you guys are more emotionally connected to be anyone, whoever it is, right? Does that influence in the decision making around, right? When we talk about, maybe just taking from a reference point of view, is like whether I should be more connected to my family, or at a given point of time, my career should be, the priority point. Maybe then from an emotional aspect, it becomes much more difficult for them to make that decision, that what should be my, the least priority over here. And that is where they every time, put the people around, or maybe the family ahead of their own decision. Well, how do you think, maybe at that point of time, that decisions making, or how that clarity needs to come in, being emotionally connected, but also not compromising on what you really need or what you really aspire as a woman?
Very interesting question, right? And again, this is something I'm not sure if we can generalize this to women, but maybe women have a tendency of being more in touch with their emotions and can sway emotionally, right? I would say that emotional self-regulation is key, in the sense that for any of us, if we want to live an equanimous life, that is why Krishna keeps talking about sthita prajna in the Gita, to say that you need to be equanimous, right? Man or woman, doesn't matter. All of us, to live a life which is meaningful and doesn't cause us too much suffering, we need to find equanimity, right? So I would say that the first step for any woman would be to find emotional self-regulation in terms of what are tools that can bring them back to center, right? So say, for example, I love meditation, I love journaling. It's a way of processing my emotions for me. But maybe there's somebody else who loves to go dance it out, right? And that is a way of them dealing with their emotions. Some might like to talk to their friends and walk through, through conversations. So I think we all need to identify and build our emotional toolkit to say, what can help me come back to baseline? And then I think In terms of decision making, I love the Indic scriptures because they give a very objective way of looking at it. And there are two bhavas that I always go back to when it comes to important decisions, right? Uh, they go to saying that one is the Sakshi bhava, the other is the Sakhi bhava. So, Sakshi bhava is to be a witness, a very objective, rational witness, to look at all the pros and cons without exaggeration, without trivializing, to say what is the current situation and what really are my options. And the second is Sakhi Bhava, which is to say, can I not beat myself up? Right? Instead of constantly beating myself up, saying, I was so stupid. I should have thought about that. How could I have gotten myself in this situation? Instead of taking away my energy, beating myself up, can I be compassionate and say, like a friend would come and tell you, I made this mistake. You won't say, how stupid, right? You say it happens. Everybody has done that. It happens to many of us. So, with that compassion, can I look at it and say, what do I want to do now? So I would probably go back to these two. And again, for anybody who uh, needs that objectivity and compassion in decision making.
Wow, that's a wonderful way to put across. I mean, I think this is why even I believe that our scripts, right, ancient scripts have got a lot of wisdom, and all our, solutions that we need, even in this today's modern age, we find it in our scripts, right? And that's what I think that got me thinking actually that okay, now it's right time for us to go back and dig and read at least. That was kind of a in my bag burner kind of a thing that oh, I want to say for an example reading a Bhagavad Gita, right? So it's like I wanted to go back and read it. I do have it, but it's like again as you mentioned, right? So we kind of prioritize other things so much that what we really want to do we put it aside, right? So that's another reason. So thank you for reminding that. So now what I want to move
I'm
ahead
glad.
with okay, so what I want to move ahead with is the manifestation. So first we talked about mental health. Second, we want to talk about manifestation, right? So uh, how can women harness the power of manifestation to intentionally create a life that aligns with authentic desires, moving beyond the limitations of fine narrative? The reason why I am specifically asking this is uh, because, as you rightly mentioned, we are close to our moon cycle, so we are more intuitive than men, right? So in fact, when we have certain intuitions, we can definitely have that visualization, right? And we can think about, okay, I feel that this is right. And when we start thinking in that direction that so and so thing is right, we try to believe that it is right, right? And that is closer to manifestation, is what I would say. Obviously, taking action is the next step to it. But then I feel that women, if we practice manifestation technique, it will easily come to us as compared to men. I mean, I could be wrong. This is my own theory, because I feel that since we have better visualization in terms of intuitions, so women can easily gain results through manifestation. So how can we harness manifestation for intentional living?
Yeah. So I would say I don't know whether women are better manifestors than men. See, as per nature, it is alignment, right? So you align to nature's laws, whether you're a man or a woman, nature doesn't discriminate. Anybody can make it happen. But I would say for women specifically, in terms of being able to manifest and start living their intentional life, the first thing is already something that you used in your question, the word, which is to say authentic desire. Now, the challenge is that as women, if we have assumed a lot of other people's expectations and kind of superimposed it on ourselves, we don't really know what we want. So, all of us, we kind of, and men also do this, but we tend to live life outside in, right? Which means if I see somebody else wearing a designer sari, I want that sari, right? Or if I see somebody driving the latest car, I want that car. Now all of this is outside in, which is great. You can keep fulfilling your material desires over and over again like this, but it won't actually fulfill you. So say for example, the joy I feel when I write, It is mine and mine alone, right? My husband looks at me and he's like, what are you writing? It doesn't make sense to him because he's never used a pen and paper outside school. But for me, I love writing, and that is where it, for me, it feels aligned, right? So what we need to look at is when we say the word authentic desires, is it outside in or is it inside out? Am I doing it to project a certain image to society, or am I genuinely desiring that? That I think is the first filtration to say, do I truly want? Because a lot of us ask for a lot of things and we keep changing our minds. Have you noticed? Today I want a red Mercedes, tomorrow I want a blue BMW, right?
Absolutely.
And third, if we go to US and we see Tesla, we're like, oh wait, cancel all of that, we want that. Right? Why is it constantly fluctuating? Because there is no inherent desire. We are looking out and it all looks like a kid in a candy store. I want that, I want that, I want that. Now we need to really look within and say, what truly matters to me, and can I work towards that? So that is where it is a lot more fulfilling and satisfying for us to actually achieve it. Right? We've all had successes that have felt empty. We keep working for a promotion, we keep working for a certain milestone or a landmark to say, oh, I want this much wealth in my account and things like that. But if you notice, once you hit it, you don't even think about it for more than a second, right? The promotion came,
Right.
the award is kept in the cupboard, and that's it.
Absolutely.
Why? Because there was no heart invested in it, right? Which is why when I was branding my community, I said being miraculous, because miraculous is to do something with all your heart, involvement, and presence. Can you be fully available right now, right here when I'm talking to you? I'm not thinking about my next appointment. I'm not thinking about what I've been doing before. Am I fully present here and actually engaging in this conversation? Most of us probably who are listeners who are watching this much later would have probably tuned out and doing something else, right? So inside out, not outside in, for all your desires. That is when fulfillment is lasting. Now, once this desire, the clarity is there that this is what I want, second is the most important thing, which is to show up. Yeah, none of our Instagram reels talk about that. It is about think, visualize, imagine, all stars and moon, and God will deliver it to us in our hand, right? It doesn't work like that. We have to do our effort to it. I need to be available in the right time, right place to put in my effort so that I get the opportunities that I desire. There is no shortcut to showing up. I keep saying this because we become a generation of instant gratification, that today I put in something, tomorrow I get 10x the results. It doesn't work like that. But you keep showing up, the universe will give you 100x, better than you've ever imagined. But you have to show up for what is your part in it. And the third and the most beautiful thing, which I think my yoga teacher always says, which is to accept the outcome. We have this very entitlement to say that whatever I want will happen and I have to win at all costs, right? Whether we like it or not, our chance of winning is 1/3. The outcome can be
Wow.
favorable, it can be unfavorable, or it can be somewhat favorable, right? Not really all yours or all theirs. So we need to understand that we might only win 1/3 of the shots in our life, but can we be accepting of the other 2/3 shots also, and still keep showing up with the same faith and trust? What do we do when Krishna gives us what we want? We are all praises for Krishna. When he doesn't give us, ekdam gali,
It's
right?
cold.
Yeah. So acceptance that whatever is coming to us is a gift. We may understand the value of the gift immediately, or maybe in retrospective, but it is a gift. So I would say the third part of about manifesting your life intentionally is acceptance, that whatever comes is for my best.
Wow, so wonderfully summarized, Shweta, in terms of what manifestation is. One is, I mean, obviously, when you spoke about not comparing yourself with others, that's where you become one as person as a grounded. That is what my belief is. It's like you are not comparing yourself with others out there. If that's the case, then you are never going to be successful, or maybe not even successful, being happy in what you have. That's the ground reality, right? I mean, as you said with the example, whatever car or aspirations you have, your desires, if you keep comparing yourself with others out there, you are never going to be happy with what you have. And that's where the internal channelizing of all those energies that happiness that we seek out for, right? That is how it should come out in a way. And then the second aspect where you said, right, I'm trying to relate it to where you said showing up, right? And that's where when you spoke about intentional living, and that's where you said consistency, right? So like showing up consistently in a certain way, irrespective of what the outcome or what the results are. That's more important because that is what you are desiring. That is what you are aspiring for. Maybe, just like you might want something as a human being. Maybe as you said, I enjoy writing, right? Maybe it might not give you an instant results, or maybe might not turn out to be what exactly you are thinking about. But then consistently showing up is more important, and that's where it gives you that maybe that kick that we talk about, right? Maybe as an intern, what's that kick that gives you every day, waking up and taking out a book and a pen and keep writing about something, right? So that's more important rather than what we are visualizing or manifesting about. That should be the end result. So this is what I really need of, right? So really love that thought that you shared. So uh, uh, over to you, Ramya.
Okay, so now I would like to get into the another important M in women's life, that is men, right? We cannot just dismiss men saying that no, we are great and we do everything, we are nurturers and we are like victims and so on and so forth. I can definitely say without men in our lives or without their support, we won't get that courage, as you rightly mentioned, right? I mean, if we kind of want to do something, if we don't get that right kind of support from people around us, definitely we will not get that encouragement and that kind of a courage, right, to go forward and go and achieve things, right? So we can, though it is Women's Day special or whatever it is, men are equally important. But now what we want to actually ensure is, obviously, in this today's day and age, and kind of millennials and Gen Zs, they are already doing it, but it's like it was more prevalent in the previous generations where men there was a lot of patriarchy. But then now we things are changing. Obviously we need more change, but then we cannot say that nothing is in our favor, or men that is still patriarchy. Yes, it is, but it is still changing, right? So what I wanted to maybe kind of talk about is what specific actions can men take to create an environment where women feel safe to be vulnerable and authentic, moving beyond just avoiding harmful actions? Meaning that we try to always show our brave face, right? And we seldom show our vulnerability, especially at the workplace, right? We always want to compete with men, and we want to not show our vulnerable side, so that people will not come to us saying that, or men will not come to us saying that, oh, she's playing a simp card, right? So how can men create such an environment, whether it's in the personal space or whether it's a professional space?
Yeah, I think I definitely agree with you in the sense that it is not one versus the other, right? We need to create an equitable environment together. And both roles, both genders then play a critical part in creating that environment of safety for each other. I think there are many things men can do, right? But if I had to think on the top of the hat, I would say to listen more, to judge less, to stop labeling women. I think that is too often a way to kind of, oh, you're too loud, you're too quiet, you're too aggressive, you're too timid. Stop labeling women. Women are not too much or too less of anything. They just are. Just like how you are allowed to be, we are also allowed to be. And we can also have different moods. So learn to deal with it, please. Uh, don't give advice unless asked for. Please, the biggest thing I can't,
Yes.
that's one thing I've received so much at my workplace, and I would really want to scream and yell, but then, kind of hold your tongue. But please don't give advice unless someone's asking you for it. And I think also to start noticing your own bias, to say that when are you having certain biases against women, and to call yourself out and start making adjustments, right? And not to villainize yourself or crucify yourself, but to really say that, hey, I noticed that I did this, in a meeting, right? Can I be more mindful? Let me not cut her off when she's still mid sentence and explaining her point of view. Yeah, let me hear her out and then probably chime in. So small things like this, when you have, right, start. And I think the other most important thing that I've often seen decent men do, which is to be silent, when the other men around them are cracking lewd jokes or sending wife jokes in a WhatsApp group. I think call out. Men, you also have to do your part in calling them out. It is not okay. Yeah, just because you are not
Absolutely.
propagating it, just because you're not propagating it doesn't mean it is not happening. It's happening in front of your eyes, so you need to stop it. Silence is as good as being a part of it. So please call out when you see it. Call out so that others feel safer. And I understand men also have their own burdens, because if they call out, they are looked as sissies and they are looked as women in, who are sensitive and things like that. We need to fight it together, right? uh, what we really need to understand is that whether we are men or women, we each have our masculine and feminine parts to us. And we can be balanced as humans only when we have both sides. For example, if I'm only leaning into my feminine side, right, I'm intuitive, I'll go with the flow, I will never get things done, right? Because I'll be waiting for feeling aligned. I need the masculine part of logic, structure to plan my day, to organize my work, to get things done. So we need to realize that masculine and feminine are both equal parts to us. Women can be very masculine in nature, men can be very feminine nature. It is okay. Instead of judging each other, can we allow space for all of us to be? And we take responsibility to take care of ourselves. That means I learn to regulate myself, you learn to regulate yourself. That means we're not throwing our own nonsense at each other. Yeah, we are creating a safe environment by doing that. So I think all of us have to take our responsibility in it and cultivate this together.
Wow, amazing. So there are two important lessons that I learned in this last 5 minutes. One is listening more, and the other one is not giving advices until asked for, right? So obviously, I mean, to be very honest, I'm not sure whether I'm talking on in terms of what as an individual. I think, right? Whenever it happens, as you know, in our conversation with me and Ramya, it's like whenever she talks about something, at times, obviously, we have discussed on this particular topic, and at times she only wants me to listen to what she's talking instead of jumping to something as a conclusion or jumping to something saying, hey, you should have done this. So it's like we in certain way triggering more, or maybe it's like we giving her one more opportunity to get irritated and frustrated with which already she is, right? So then it's like I'm being part of that, the crime which someone else has done it, so now I'm participating into that crime. So that's the important thing for me to take from this conversation. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, and also to use lesser words, right? It's not a crime. It's not, we need to be kind to ourselves also. It is coming from a place of care, right? Why you want to rescue or you want to problem solve. Uh, so we need to understand, right? So that's one thing I remember. I would ask, my husband would say, don't coach me, right? Like, I didn't ask you to coach me. Like, stop getting into that board right
Oh
now.
shit,
So
same
so
here.
it's very, yeah. So it's very important to check in. I would say that, okay, what kind of a role do you want me to play right now? Do you want me to play the role of a listener? Do you want me to play the role of a problem solver? Check in, right? The other person will be able to tell you what is it that they really want, and then play that part in terms of supporting them.
Absolutely. And this is exactly what I tell Vivek. So whenever I want to kind of vent it out to him, or maybe we discuss on something that I faced discomfort about, and etc. Right. So he's like, okay, then what did you do about this? Or maybe, okay, then did you try this? I said, just turn off your coach mode, switch off that button, because he's also an agile coach. I'm also an agile coach. I said, I don't want you to be an agile coach over here, or coach in general. Just listen. I just want to vent it out. So just listen. Do not I'm not looking for solutions. So I think this is this is what we discussed very recently, I think a few months back, that what, I was not able to articulate saying that okay, I wanted him to listen, but I happened to stumble upon a Instagram video about a relationship kind of a thing, right? And that's when a female in that reel says that, what, we want you to listen. We don't want your advice, we don't want your solution, we want you to listen. That's a very important I think men should understand, and I feel that if men don't understand, we must make them understand, saying that, you know what, please lend that listening ear, right? I mean, we don't want to solution it. I think half of the problems will be solved if we communicate properly, right? So
Absolutely.
I think that is the biggest thing, because when what I feel is, professionally we set our boundaries, right? I mean, okay, we at beyond this point, you're not going to say anything further, right? We try to diffuse the situation, or maybe we try to stop the argument or conversation, right? But when it comes to the personal life, I mean, we tend to cross that boundaries and start maybe arguing with each other, just because we can argue, or maybe we are not able to articulate or maybe communicate in a better way, arguments, or maybe we cross that boundaries. And I feel that both men and women, we must set boundaries for each other. What do you think about this?
Yeah, see, I think, see, we are humans, right? So we can't be like mechanized bots programmed to have this much emotion, this much empathy, this much
Correct.
objectivity. We need to realize that we are different every day. 2 hours before, maybe you were a calm princess, okay? Now you are very angry because you're hungry. It really is very different. So I think it's very hard to put, like, specific buckets. But like you said, one is that. Um, there is an individual responsibility I have and the other person has in any relationship to take care of myself, right? I need to know what I want. I need to realize that I have the power to ask and say no if it is not okay, right? All three, and the other person also has that choice, right? Which means that the other person can't be forced to do something if they do not want. So having that and accepting that it is going to be a journey of give and take, right? It is not always going to be one sided, but it cannot always be only one sided. So we need to actually make the effort that both sides play the game. But I think it's just that each there is this whole thing that, oh, should women not cook, should women not do this? There is no such
Yes.
specific formula, right? As a woman, you might love cooking, right? I'm not that woman, but maybe there are women who actually love cooking, and that is their way of expression or showing their love, which is perfectly fine. So rather than, I think, from moving from one gender stereotype to another gender stereotype, I think we need to open it up to say, can two self-aware humans decide for themselves what is it that they want to bring in a relationship, and allow it to evolve, right? There could be a time when, say, Ramya, your work takes up a lot of more time and effort, and maybe somebody else is expected to jump in, and there might be times when it's the other way around. So it is that give and take that we need to realize, and not about stereotyping, but to say that, can I give myself a spectrum or a range of options, and not label myself as a good wife or a bad wife, good mother or a bad mother, when I don't fit into any of those boxes, right? I think, A, we don't give ourselves choices. Two, we judge ourselves very quickly, right? We label ourselves and judge ourselves very quickly when we don't fit into any of those boxes. So I think, can we give ourselves the choice? And two, can we keep the judgment aside and say that, hey, I'm trying my best. Given the resources, time, and energy I have today, I am doing my best. And it is for both genders.
Wow, that's a lovely point, I would say. I mean, and this is what I wanted to ask as the last question. So, I mean, we all know that recently, most of us have seen Mrs. movie, right, or the Great Indian Kitchen movie, and that created a lot of riff over internet, right, regarding what is wrong about women cooking in the kitchen, or men being demanding, and so on and so forth, right? So, obviously, I'm not getting into the controversial part of it, but what I want to maybe touch upon, since you already talked about it, is how do you believe that both men and women can challenge the existing gender roles and expectations from each other?
Yeah. And I think that's a very powerful question that you asked, Ramya. And I would say two, three things, right? That one, being self aware, in the sense to say, what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What is the other person's strength? And what is the other person's weaknesses? And then the second thing would be to have conversations around it, right? To say, hey, you know what? I really am bad at numbers. Can you take care of the finances? I'm really good at the smaller attentions to detail things. So let me take care of those things, right? To play to our strengths and say, and keep communicating, right? Uh, to say that, hey, this is feeling too much for me. Can you take on some load, right? Or to have conversations to say, you know what, the next month looks really hard. What is it that we can do? Can we bring in an external resource? Can we do something else? Can we park a certain things for later? Right? So one is to really be self-aware, to know who am I, what can I do, what can I not do, where is it that I draw that boundary of too much or too less. And two, to actually have conversations as equals to say, where is it that we need additional support, what is it that we want to do for each other. And three, to do it in a very compassionate way, right? Not to say that, if you start off the conversation by saying you're useless and you've done nothing in our marriage for so long, now at least pick this up. Come on, no other human is going to respond to that tone or that words, right? So can we do it with a compassion to say that, hey, I know you're also having a lot of workload, but we need to figure out how these common things are going to get done, right? And to allow it to evolve over a period of time. Like, I used to remember when I was just recently married, I would always say it has to be 50-50, right? Because I used to be very strong feminist and all of those kind of things. And, what me and my husband realized is that it can never be equal 50-50, over the years as we started talking, some days maybe I can give 100 and he can't give anything at all in the house. But maybe there are other days when he gives 100 and I am completely absorbed in work. So you need to realize that that 50-50 is not one partition line drawn very clearly, but to say that, can you learn to support each other, right, in terms of what needs to be done. And I think that is where the relationship builds. And to not really have any gender stereotypes in that, but to say, can I play to my strengths, right? This comes naturally to me, so obviously it's going to take me much lesser time, so why not I do it and actually have more time together that way.
Wow. I would like to maybe add to this is, yes, we must have a maybe communication about it and maybe play to our strengths. But as a woman, I would also say that not being guilty about not giving ourselves, right? And trust me when I say this, that in our cases, Vivek and I'm not a great cook, but Vivek is a very good cook. He enjoys cooking, whereas I'm good at what I do, my work, right? So, and I used to literally have so much guilt in me that, you know what, oh, he's cooking, maybe he's cooking breakfast for us, or maybe, you know what, I'm not able to cook that way, or maybe I'm not able to do other certain thing which he's able to do it, or maybe he's putting out his 100%, or maybe he's putting his best foot forward. And I used to be guilty about it. I mean, it's like so much so that, and he used to never say that, you know what, I didn't expect you to do it, and you should be guilty about that. But in me, as a woman, we are so conditioned, right? You know what, this is what it is, and this is what we need to do, and this is what maybe a man need to do, right? That is so much ingrained in us that we feel guilty about it. I just kind of realized that I think 2 years ago, in obviously we are like 8 years into marriage, and I realized this, that it's okay to not have guilty about it just 2 years back. So much it has to, I mean, and that too, I found again when you mentioned, right, leaving outside in, right? So when a psychologist came for a podcast, she's a doctor. She said that, you know what, even I am like that. My husband, both of them are cardiologists and in cardio surgeon, I would say. Her husband cooks well, and she does rest of the things. And she told me that, you know, it's okay, just try to see that how who does that work efficiently, right? And that made me think, oh, I was just beating myself up so many years, and just to realize, and you, as you mentioned, right, not listen to the society what they feel. Oh, she's not cooking, it's every time Vivek cooking, or maybe he's cooking the breakfast. Oh, even today Vivek made breakfast. So just cut out all these noises and to be guilt free, right? So that's, I think,
Yeah.
that comes with lot of conscious practice.
Yeah, and I think you touched a very strong point, Ramya, in the sense that I think most women feel guilty, right? It is a constant feeling. You're guilty about this, you're guilty about that. Like, I can see the pile on my table. It's not exactly the cleanest table on the world, right? And I think we need to let ourselves be. It is very hard, like you said, because that conditioning is so deep rooted that even though we know it's a gender stereotype, we want to fit into that stereotype. Why? Because we want someone to pat and say, good girl. We've been like those Pavlov's dogs,
Yes.
raised to feel that good girl thing that we always want. And it will take time, right? And that is why I said that we need to be very compassionate with ourselves in this process to really say it is okay, right? Women weren't also earning income in previous days. That is why they were responsible for taking care of the housework. So the society is changing, and what we need to realize is that this change is not overnight. Yeah, we are talking about hundreds of years of conditioning, so it's not going to go away anytime soon. But the responsibility is ours to say that if I catch myself feeling guilty, I need to consciously process it and say, hey, you know what, I don't need to feel that bad, right? It is an equal relationship, and there is a give and take. So you don't want your spouse to feel guilty also, right? When you do something for them, do you want them to say thank you and fall at your feet? Of course not, right? So it's the same thing. So we also don't have to feel that way, and we need to give ourselves permission. It is okay. We have to, that is the thing, right? I think women are bound by these very hard definitions of how a woman should be and how we need to look, how we need to sit, how we need to talk. I need to have a pleasant face, right? If I have messy hair, then it's not okay. So many of these, right? I can't be too fat, I can't be too thin. There is a lot of download we have received, right? And I always tell women, the first thing you need to do to take control of your life is to shed what is not yours. Yeah, I need to shed this thought about what my body should look like. I need to shed my thought about how I should walk, how I should talk. Am I allowed to yell? Yes, I am. Right? So we need to shed what is not ours. And it is a constant game. You're constantly doing. I mean, we still see our mothers and grandmothers doing, right? Because they are also constantly battling this. So it is a journey. And I think we all need to give ourselves the grace to go through that journey, which means that we will make mistakes. We will be consumed by guilt sometimes. We will try and overcompensate that guilt. It is part of evolution. Yeah. So to allow ourselves that grace to go through it and say, can I learn from this and be better than I was yesterday?
Yes. Just 2 cents. I just wanted to add to what you both were discussing and really enjoyed this conversation. That's the reason I did not get into this. The only thing I just wanted to, when we started this conversation, is one like where we started is the expectations around, right? The expectations, the societal expectations, one, or maybe it's a self-made expectations. So maybe that's most important for us to understand what's the societal expectation and what is the self-made expectation that you are putting on yourself. Maybe that is where the balance or maybe the shift needs to happen is like what is being followed over a period of years or over so many years, and now what's the change that we need to bring in. And this is what I always keep talking to Raman, and it's in more in general, it's like there are certain life skills and where both men and women need to have. And I think what we're speaking about is cooking, and I think it is a life skill. It's not gender specific skill that one needs to have. So maybe if it's a life skill, then there need not be any gender bias around it saying that who needs to learn it or who need not be getting into that aspect of it. Maybe, and just example, maybe something in terms of maybe if just for example a woman is driving a car and she wants to change the tire. Maybe it's something, a skill that she needs to have it, because maybe at a given point of time she might not get any sort of help, right? So maybe that mechanical skills or maybe certain kind of skills that is going to save her at that point of time is something we need to learn over a period of time, and it need not be gender biased is what I always keep talking with Ramya in those aspects. So just wanted to share with audience as well.
Yeah, beautiful. And I think what you shared is very right in the first point that you said, that it is to also check the unsaid expectations that we are following, right? One, of course, is that there is a verbal messaging that our society gives us that we've been handed down, but we also take on a lot of unsaid expectations. That means that even if nobody is standing there and saying you should be cooking, I still feel guilty that I should be cooking, right? So yeah, I think it's a process of consciously working on ourselves to catch ourselves and to change. And what you said is very true, Vivek, to say how can we look at it as a gender agnostic life skill. All of us need to know our finances. All of us need to know how to cook. All of us need to know how to change a tire. It's all survival skills. So can we not attach a gender to it and demean it for no reason?
Wow. That was a wonderful conversation, Shweta. Thank you so much for coming over and doing this podcast. We literally enjoyed this conversation. It did not feel like a kind of a formal conversation, or maybe kind of a conversation for a podcast. We literally enjoyed whatever we discussed, because we need to have such conversations more, because how much ever we say that people are progressing and world is progressing, we see such things happening in pockets, in major pockets, I would say, especially in India, not talking about other countries, especially in India. And it becomes more prevalent when we see controversies and noises for the movies that we see around. Just for an example, there was so much conversation on that movie when it got released, and women started supporting that female, and men started bashing females. So still we feel that more such conversations are needed. And thank you so much for joining us in such a wonderful conversation. We really enjoyed a lot. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, both of you. Very insightful questions. I also enjoyed the conversation, and I hope your listeners find value in it. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching this episode patiently till the end. We hope you enjoyed the episode. We'll meet you again in the next episode. Till then, if you like our podcast show, then do like, share, subscribe, and let us know your feedback in the comment section. You can also listen to the episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, and Audible. Thank you.